The purpose of this presentation is to review important information found in the 25-26 Baltimore County Public Schools Student Handbook. This same presentation is being made to secondary students across the school system. Regardless of where a student attends school in Baltimore County, the high expectations for behavior, as outlined in the student handbook, remain the same. Establishing clear expectations for behavior early in the year helps to avoid misunderstandings where the Baltimore County Public Schools Code of Conduct is concerned. With the start of the school year, Baltimore County Public Schools is proactively providing as much information as possible regarding behavior so that school is a success for everyone. Having a full understanding of the behaviors that contribute to a positive climate is why this presentation is so important. Please take note of your school administrator, as students are now assigned by graduation year and grade level. Ms. Albert is the 12th grade administrator, Ms. Kirby 11th grade, Ms. O'Neill 10th grade, and Mr. Adcock has the 9th grade. What is the purpose of today? For you to understand what's expected, what are the consequences, who's responsible, and who's available. The 25-26 Student Handbook is organized to reflect the Office of School Climate and Culture's framework for creating a positive learning environment. The framework outlines prevention, logical consequences, and restoration as key components for creating a positive learning environment. Accordingly, the majority of the information contained within the Student Handbook is organized under one of those broad headings, as evidenced by the handbook's table of contents. Under each one of the headings, prevention, logical consequences, and restoration, there is relevant information. Given what students have experienced over the recent years, the Student Handbook has been enhanced to make it a positive resource for students and families in the area of social-emotional supports. The Student Handbook is a product of the Department of School Safety that supports the superintendent's priority areas directly and indirectly. The main priority of all school systems is for students to achieve academically. However, in order for students to achieve, the system must have effective employees, solid policies and procedures or infrastructure, and safe and positive learning environments.
As a student enrolled in the Baltimore County Public School System, a student has certain rights. Some of those rights are listed here. Take a look at the rights and ask questions about ones that may be unfamiliar. Students enrolled in the BCPS system also have certain responsibilities. Some of those responsibilities are listed here. Again, review the list and feel free to ask questions about any responsibilities shown. Some of the responsibilities have been highlighted in the BCPS Code of Student Conduct. The BCPS discipline process referenced in the Student Handbook is guided by federal law, state law, and our Board of Education's policies and the superintendent's rules. The policies that govern the discipline process are those related to the Code of Conduct, student behavior, and suspensions and expulsions. Our school administrators are knowledgeable of these policies and make every effort to abide by them. As students, you should familiarize yourself with the Code of Student Conduct and abide by it. The BCPS Code of Student Conduct, which is found in Policy 5500, states that students should come to school consistently, be active learners by getting involved with their education, bring to school only those things needed for school, be positive and respectful, take responsibility. When students violate the Code of Student Conduct, Policy 5550 outlines how students' behavior will be addressed. Policy 5550 was developed with student success in mind. Policy 5550 outlines the school system's discipline process. Within the policy are offenses most often committed by students. The offenses are sorted by category and severity. Category 1 offenses are the less serious offenses. These offenses may result in a suspension, but could be handled without a student's removal from school. Category 2 offenses are more serious. These offenses tend to result in a suspension from school when the principal is able to show the disruptive nature of a student's behavior or how the student's behavior poses a threat. Category 3 offenses are most likely to result in a suspension from school with a recommendation for an extended suspension or expulsion. These offenses could involve the Baltimore County Police Department charging a student. Students should review the offenses on pages 16 through 18 carefully with a parent or guardian. Questions about the meaning of a particular offense should be clarified early in the school year so that students know what is expected of them. When a student commits a crime off school property in the community, the student can be charged by the Baltimore County Police Department. The police department will notify the school system that the student has committed a criminal report offense, or CRO. Even though the crime is committed off school property, the student could be subjected to consequences from the school system. The school system's consequences are completely separate from the criminal process employed by the police department.
The Code of Student Conduct outlined in the Student Handbook applies to all students attending a Baltimore County Public Schools or program. The Code of Student Conduct also applies to situations that occur off school property. Students should be aware that the Code of Conduct applies while on field trips, at sporting events, and other extracurricular events and on school buses. Regardless of where an incident takes place, school administrators have the scope of authority to intervene if they have a reason to believe that an incident has impacted or will impact the school community in a negative manner. It is critically important that students and parents understand the scope of school administrators' authority. If a student's conduct warrants a suspension, the administrative team can issue a suspension that is between 1 and 10 days. A suspension under 10 days is called a local suspension. If the principal feels that the student's behavior was so egregious, the principal may request a longer suspension from the student conduct hearing officer, the SCHO. The SCHO has been designated by the superintendent to hear discipline cases on her behalf and make decisions about long-term removals from school. Only the SCHO can authorize a suspension of more than 10 days. With all local suspensions, guardians can appeal the principal's decisions to suspend. For local suspensions, the Executive Director of School Support, ED, would hear the appeal, and for board suspension, the Board of Education would hear the appeal. More on the discipline process can be found on pages 18 through 21 of the Student Handbook. Students and parents are strongly encouraged to become familiar with the system's disciplinary process. The reportable offense process is very similar to the discipline process. A reportable offense exclusion is also decided upon by the SCHO. The reportable offense process is found on page 22 of the Student Handbook. In this year's version of the Student Handbook, pages 23 through 26, the category offenses are presented in a matrix that suggests who may be responsible for addressing the offense. The offenses listed to the far left are those offenses that our teachers will most likely handle. The offenses to the far right are those offenses that administrators and the student conduct hearing officers will most likely handle. Look at the matrix shown. Offenses such as academic dishonesty, category 1R, and the use of electronic devices for non-educational purposes, category 1U, are best handled by teachers. These are minor behaviors that teachers are equipped to address. Robbery, category 3V, on the other hand, is located on the far right, indicating that an administrator is best positioned to handle that offense. Committing any of the offenses may result in a disciplinary removal or suspension from school. Committing any of the offenses will most likely result in some form of disciplinary action. That disciplinary action does not always mean a suspension. Pages 27 through 30 identify other disciplinary responses available to teachers, school administrators, and hearing officers. The responses shown are suggestions and are not meant to dictate how teachers, administrators, and hearing officers are required to handle a situation. Teachers, administrators, and hearing officers are free to use their discretion in deciding how to best address student behaviors for more serious violations. A disciplinary removal suspension may be in order. Both the discipline process and the reportable offense process make it quite clear that bringing a gun on campus is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. The presence of a firearm on school property poses an immediate threat of serious harm to everyone in the building. For that reason, the law allows superintendents across the county to expel a student from school for more than a year when the student makes the poor decision to bring a gun to school. All guns, pellet, paintball, BB, water gun, etc. are strictly prohibited. With toy guns closely resembling real guns and real guns being designated to purposely look like toy guns, police officers cannot tell the difference. If a police officer encounters a student with a gun, the officer is always going to respond as if it is a real gun. Please, please, please do not bring any kind of gun to school. The cameras installed in and around the school building can detect presence of guns. Cameras are on and operational 24/7. Do not bring any type of gun onto school property before school, after school, on the weekends, or for the holidays. You can be suspended for doing so. The school system has the right to issue consequences whenever students do not conduct themselves appropriately while on school property. That includes during non-school hours.
Please take note that BCPS has implemented a county-wide cell phone policy. Students may possess the personal electronic communication devices on school property. However, students may not use them during the instructional day, with the exception of lunch and when permitted during instructional time. This year, a new policy is in effect for using a personal electronic device to stream or publish on social media a recorded event involving one or more conduct violations. This is a Category 2 offense and is taken seriously. Technology acceptable use policy. Students must adhere to the following responsibilities prior to using or connecting to BCPS technologies and the internet at school. Students will not create or communicate abusive, harassing, bullying, offensive, or illegal messages. Students are responsible for logging off after using school computers so others cannot access your password. Students will not attempt to bypass security settings or internet filters or interfere with the network by installing or downloading unauthorized software and games. The Office of Transportation has developed and published a code of conduct that bus drivers, school administrators will continue to use to address misbehavior on the school bus. The code classifies unacceptable behavior into 4 levels and provides potential consequences at each level. Students should know that riding the school bus is a privilege. This privilege may be temporarily denied or permanently revoked if misconduct jeopardizes the safe operation of the school bus or the safety of students riding the bus. School suspension is also possible for misconduct on the bus. School buses are equipped with cameras that also capture audio. These cameras monitor the passenger area of the bus. As such, students are subject to video and audio recording. The objective is to provide an important tool to assist the driver and administration in managing student conduct on school buses. Please be mindful that a student who refuses to be searched can be disciplined. Refusing to let administrators conduct a search does not prevent a student from facing consequences. Quite the opposite is true. A student who refuses a search is setting themselves up for a consequence. While state law allows adults to purchase and use cannabis in a responsible way, students are still prohibited from possessing, distributing, and using cannabis, even in an edible form. Drugs are drugs. Simply because a drug appears in a more acceptable form does not make it acceptable for students. Students are still prohibited from having and sharing food products containing drugs. Students who leave their school during the day and return can face disciplinary charges. Administrators may also prohibit them from re-entering. Assisting others who are trying to access the building creates a safety risk. Students who let others in the building could face the same consequence as the person who accessed the building. Also, administrators may prohibit students from re-entering after students have left the building without permission. Allowing students to freely come and go poses a safety risk. Students who are suspended are not permitted on BCPS property. A student who comes to school while suspended or who visits another school could face trespassing charges. The telecommunications policy prohibits students from misusing technology. Recording fights and sharing the videos is a misuse of technology. Airdropping fights and other graphic content is a misuse of technology. The new language that has been added to the Student Handbook makes this misuse of technology clear. Students who engage in such practices could receive disciplinary consequences.
A strategy for preventing code of conduct violations on the bus or in school is knowing how to make responsible decisions. Making responsible decisions is a part of social emotional learning. Students review this page very closely, please. This page informs students of what they can do to promote their own social emotional learning and growth. This page lets students know what they can do when they are feeling a certain way, how they can set goals for themselves, how they should relate to others, how they create positive relationships, and how to make responsible decisions. If you want to show the world how you are maturing into a fine adult, allow this page to guide your actions. This page is relevant to whatever is going on in your life. Other areas that make up social emotional learning include 1. Self-awareness, 2. Self-management, 3. Social awareness, 4. Relationship skills, 5. Responsible decision-making. Again, Use this information to demonstrate your maturity. This page provides a list of phone numbers for those offices that students and parents are most likely to reach out to for support. In previous versions of the Student Handbook, no directory information was included. This page becomes a starting point for students and parents looking for assistance and guidance from the school system and from outside agencies. This can be found in the handbook on page 13. The hotlines listed are available at all times. Students who are experiencing a crisis should not hesitate to reach out for support. The hotlines are staffed with trained counselors. The National Suicide Hotline number is 988. That number is dialed in the same way that 911 is dialed. This page is an opportunity for students to identify people who can support them when needed. The value of this page is that it allows students to identify specific people that they trust to act in their best interest. Here, students should identify some of their closest friends, teachers, and whoever else they rely on in a crisis. The information that we want students to provide here cannot be found in our student information system. Note that the page has been perforated so that the page can easily be torn out. Students should complete this page and turn in to their homeroom teachers for future reference. This page, along with the 2 previous pages, are meant to be resources for students seeking support with their social, emotional well-being. At Dundalk High School, we are one OWL. 1. Responsible for oneself. O. Outstanding dedication. W. Willingness to succeed. L. Leadership by example. Remember, you are an OWL. You are one OWL. At Dundalk High, we all want to help you. There are many people to help you. School counselors, teachers, SROs, administrators, the nurse, social workers, school climate squad, SEL teachers.
Students who come to school regularly feel more connected and perform higher academically. For this reason, the State Department of Education monitors students' attendance and categorizes students according to the number of absences that they have. For example, a student who misses less than 11 days for the entire year has a low absenteeism rate. A student who misses 12 to 17 days for the entire year has a moderate absenteeism rate. A student who misses 18 or more days for the entire year has a chronic absenteeism rate. As the Code of Conduct states, take responsibility for your actions and your education. Take responsibility for your attendance and absenteeism rate. You own your attendance and your absenteeism rate. They're what you make them. A good attendance rate in high school, in college, and on the job begins here. At Dundalk High, we have a 15-15 rule. No one is out of the class the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes of each class, unless specified with a note by the nurse or an administrator. You will receive a yellow pass or the white kiosk ticket when arriving late to school. Pink passes are for the nurse, and green passes are for the bathroom and other building locations not yet specified, and must be completely filled out by the teacher or administrator. This is a friendly reminder that video surveillance is throughout the building. Make good decisions. Please remember, at Dundalk High School, we dress for success each day. The following will not be tolerated. Students will not wear attire that is disruptive to the school environment or which promotes illegal or harmful activities, which includes, but not limited to, depicting messages that are vulgar, obscene, violent, or sexually explicit, promotes use of tobacco, drugs, or alcohol, depicts gang affiliation, causes a disruption to the school, contains rude, disrespectful, or discourteous expressions. This presentation is simply a high-level overview of the BCPS Student Handbook. During this presentation, general information was shared with students on students' rights and responsibilities, the BCPS Code of Student Conduct, the BCPS Student Behavior Code, the authority of school administrators to intervene, and the BCPS discipline process. Reading the Student Handbook from cover to cover is strongly encouraged. Students and parents or guardians who have specific questions about the information contained in this presentation or the Student Handbook should reach out to a teacher, counselor, assistant principal, or principal. The presentation for the handbook has now concluded. At this time, all students should have acknowledged that they received and understand the information mentioned in the presentation. Students can provide their acknowledgement by completing and signing the paper form at the end of the handbook, and must also log into Focus and click on the electronic form. A new statement has been added to make students aware of the importance of acknowledging. Some students mistakenly believe that if they do not sign the acknowledgement form, they cannot be held accountable for their behavior. That is not true. This new statement makes that point. Students must return the acknowledgement page with their signature to their advisory teachers now.